Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today's video is going to be my May book reviews, and then I'm going to show you, finally reveal, the book that we'll be reading in June for the book club on this channel, which I'm so excited for this book. So first up, I didn't read a lot in May. I actually had 2 family funerals in 2 weeks. So I went back to Essex in May to go to the funerals. I then stayed down in Essex and just spent time with my family. It was a really emotionally difficult time. I'm also someone who doesn't do really well in big groups of people, and so I was very overwhelmed with emotion and everything, and I just didn't want to read. I didn't want to read a book and then it get me even more down or anything, so I just read comforting books that I knew I would love. So you will see that in my reviews. First up, my May book club book was Peter Pan I Chose by J.M. Barrie. This came out in 1911. It's a children's book. I'm sure everyone knows the plot. I'll just give you a basic rundown. This boy called Peter Pan, he lives in the imaginations of children. He then goes and visits Wendy and her 2 siblings, and he takes them to Neverland, which is this imaginary world. And there's loads of boys which are called the Lost Boys, which Peter has taken from other places. And then the whole story is really, there's pirates in Neverland, and the pirates are trying to get the Lost Boys. The Lost Boys are trying to get away from the pirates, and that's really the whole tale without ruining anything. I haven't done my full book review video, which I cannot wait to sit down and see what everyone thinks of it. So that will be up on the channel soon, where I'll read out all your reviews. I would personally say that there were parts in it that I really thought were beautifully written, and I've like tabbed a few bits that I know in years to come I'll read those passages back and love. But I didn't connect with any of the characters really at all. Wendy was a mother. Because she's the only girl there, they all say, "Can you be our mum? We really want a mum." And they've forgotten their own parents. So she steps into this mother role, which I found a bit tiresome. And then Peter is really horrible. Like, he's arrogant, and even the narrator in it, who talks to you a lot in the story, even the narrator says he's arrogant, he's self-centered. He's also, I would say, a manipulative little swine. Like, keeping it light, he's really emotionally manipulative, and he is violent to the boys if they don't do what he says, and that's like playing imagination. If they don't want to do that, he becomes violent to them. He manipulates them. If they don't do what he wants to do, he starts crying. Like, he's a really horrible boy, and so I didn't connect to him in any kind of way. I felt like we needed more Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell has done well from this book. She has films, she has a franchise, but in this book, she's not massively in it. Like, you go through the whole book kind of being like, where's Tinkerbell, until the end. It was okay. It was alright. That's what I'll say. It was alright, but I didn't connect to it. Next up, I wanted, because I had the 2 funerals, I wanted something that was just very comforting, and I chose the Flower Fairies books. So if you don't know what they are, Cecily Mary Barker, I think I'm saying her name wrong, but anyway, she came out with these books where she matched flowers to fairies. So like the forget-me-not fairy. So she'd have a picture of forget-me-nots and then a fairy who lives in the forget-me-nots, and she'd make up this whole story in a poem form about how that fairy came to be. And it's really magical, and for children you could go out into the garden and think there's fairies living in the flowers, and that's the whole idea of the books. They're stunning. They're poetry collections really. I feel like a lot of people talk about how a great illustrator she is, and she is, but she's also a great poet. So she brought out this one, which is Flower Fairies of the Spring. She brought this out in the 1920s, and I'll just show you quickly. They're little books, and they'll have a picture of a fairy that goes with the flower. So this is Song of the Primrose Fairy, and then it'll have a little song or poem really about that fairy. Beautiful. And the fairies' clothes are made out of petals, and the detail on them is absolutely beautiful. Loved it. So I read Flower Fairies of the Spring, and then she did all the seasons, and then she did other random books. So Flower Fairies of the Trees and the Wayside, and this one, which is Flower Fairies of the Garden. So flowers that you would find in a common garden. She did one, and then she did another one, which was a Flower Fairy alphabet. This is really an alphabet of flowers, which I think is such a good idea for children, because you could really get them to learn, you know, different flowers and stuff. So H is for the herb, twopence, fairy, and at the bottom she'll have in kind of brackets other names for that plant. So some plants have loads of different names, and she puts it there. So I think you're really educating children, and also me. Like, I didn't know all these different flowers, educating on flowers. I just love them. I just adore them. They're great. They weren't as uplifting as I thought they were going to be. I was like emotionally drained, and I was like, I just want something really nice. So I'll read these few books. Some of them are like harrowing tales of the fairies. They're like, people call me a weed, but I'm a human. And you were like, sorry, what? And then other ones were like, people come and pick at me and pick my leaves off and I'm left. And it was just like, oh, some of them are a bit much. But I suppose the first one was in the 1920s. So it's kind of got a little bit of a sinister take on some of them that you're like, oh my God, I feel really sorry for that like flower now. And it's like, people hide me and all the other flowers shelter me and I don't see the light. I was like, oh God. But I did think it was absolutely beautiful. Love it so much. I want to read the whole entire collection. I then lastly read Glorious Cats by Lesley and Ivory. Lesley is an illustrator, and she brought out a book called Christmas Cats, which was different pictures of cats that she had drawn that she knew, and they would have an extract from like famous works of literature about cats, and then underneath she'd say how she knew the cats. So she'd be like, this is my neighbour's cat, this is my son's cat. This is another one of her books that she brought out, and Lesley is very famous. Like, her stuff is on plates and bags and loads of different stuff. So Glorious Cats is a collection of cats. I'll show you. Really beautiful, amazing artist. So you have a picture of a cat, and then on the other side you have a famous work about someone talking about the cats. There's loads of different people. So Ford Madox Ford, you have J.R.R. Tolkien, which is Cat on the Mat. So she does a picture of a cat on the mat, something to do with the story that she's chosen. I thought this was good, but I wanted more Lesley. I wanted Lesley to talk about how she knew the cats, like she did in Christmas Cats, but she didn't. It was just a collection of cat pictures with famous writings. But I thought it was really good. If you're a cat lover, this is like a definite, let me just like, there. Like an Egyptian cat, a cat in flowers. It's stunning. It really brightened my day. I absolutely adored it. I want to read every book that Lesley Ann Ivory has ever brought out. Adore it. That is all the books that I read in May, but I'm currently reading a book which I'm flying through, which will be in my next book reviews video. I know I'll finish it. This is Agatha Christie at Bertram's Hotel. This is a Miss Marple, and Miss Marple goes to this fancy hotel in London that her niece has paid for her to stay at, and something's going to happen. We're on page 40 and nothing's happened yet, but we're meeting all the different guests. And the thing I love about Agatha Christie is she doesn't just tell you something simply, she leads you to something. So you know there's this glamorous woman who has a child, but you don't know where her child is. And then lo and behold, this girl comes into Bertram's hotel and she's talking about the glamorous woman. So you work out, oh, that must be her mum, but she doesn't know her mum, someone else has raised her. Like, Agatha Christie doesn't tell you anything simply, it's all alluded to, and I love that. I don't know what's going to happen in this, but I'm just flying through it. I love it so far. And I feel like I was in a bit of a reading slump in May, but that was just like an emotional slump and everything that I was going through, and now I'm out of it. Now I'm reading like a beast. So I have chosen, hold hands, for June book club that I run on this channel, I have chosen a classic, came out in the 1800s. It's a book that I feel like you may have read, but feel free to reread it with me. I haven't read it, but I kind of feel like I've read it because it's referenced in a lot of different books. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This will be my first ever Bronte novel. Haven't read anything else from her sisters, but I'm very excited to read Jane Eyre. I feel like I know the plot of this because I've read so many other books that when I've looked them up, they're like, oh, it's basically the plot of Jane Eyre. I feel like I know Jane Eyre, but I'm not going to spoil myself, so I'm not going to look it up. I'm just going to go in blindly and read this book. I hope that you're going to read it along with me. There is an audiobook on YouTube, and I don't audiobook at all because I just can't get on with audiobooks. And I clicked on it. And I was like, oh, okay, this is all right, 10 hours for the audiobook. Oh, okay, 10 hours. This is like nearly 500 pages by edition. So I was like, 10 hours, oh, okay, right, part one. So it's in 2 parts on YouTube, and it's 18 hours altogether. You'd probably be quicker just to read it, just to like read for an hour a day. You'd probably get through it quicker than 18 hours. But anyway, there is different audiobooks on YouTube. If you want to check them out, please read along with me if you want to. If you've already read it, why not do a little reread? I'm very excited, but I don't really know what to expect. I feel like I know the plot, but then I'm not quite sure. So I'm not going to spoil myself. Jane Eyre is my book pick. I hope you will join in. If you will, then once you've read this, you can comment on this video or comment on one of my Instagram pictures that I put up of this book and just give me your review, and then I'll read them out, and we just need to read this by the end of June. And that is it. This is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're going to read along with Jane Eyre, and I'll see you again soon for another video.